Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Wonka, number 2 would be Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, number 3 would be The Color Purple, number 4 would be Migration, and number 5 would be Anyone But You. And I got so close to ringing this new year. I got 3 out of 5 of my predictions right. Okay. By the way, Happy New Year to everybody. Unfortunately, nobody got their predictions right for this week, and a lot of you were really missing the mark on how well a certain movie was going to do. Not that I can initially blame you, obviously, but we'll talk about it when we get to it. Some of you got a little closer, but, either way, nobody got their predictions right, so no one is ringing in the new year with a shout-out, unfortunately. So let's just go into what actually happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 did turn out to be, like I predicted last weekend, Wonka. I thought this was going to be the holiday favorite this year. I thought it had a chance to overtake Aquaman because Aquaman's reception wasn't really that great, and even though it is the holiday season, so Aquaman won't dip too much, all of these superhero films have been dipping, save for like Spider-Man and Guardians this year. I'm pretty sure it's just those two. A lot of them have been just dipping off completely in their second weekend, so I thought for sure Wonka had its shot here, and it did. It reclaimed number 1. It made $22 million this 3-day weekend, adding to a domestic total of $140 million. Obviously, the numbers have also been up these past couple days because Christmas Day was on Monday, and we had some new releases there, booming at the box office, and then holiday break for families and stuff like that. So it's been pretty busy at the movie theaters, so higher numbers now. It is now $66 million behind the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka movie. Worldwide, it is now sitting at $384 million, so it has tripled its $125 million budget. They are $16 million away from getting to $400 million worldwide, which is incredible to say the least. At this point, it would need $600 million in order to quadruple its $125 million budget. If it can, can't rule it out at this point. It's doing really well this season. So now that places it $91 million behind the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. So it's getting pretty close to outgrossing that one in both areas here, which is pretty exciting to say the least. I don't really have much more to add to it other than I fucking knew it would outlast Aquaman. Let's talk about Aquaman now at number 2. Oh boy, it obviously did not dip that bad. I think it actually had one of the better holds this year for any comic book movie outside of Guardians or Spider-Man, obviously. But that being said, yeah, it's because it's the holiday season, so it's not going to dip off too much, and of course Aquaman already has a fandom, so this will make some more money than like newcomer Blue Beetle, you know what I mean? But still, it's let's talk about it. It made $18 million this weekend, so that adds to a domestic total of $81 million for the DC universe. It is $35 million over Wonder Woman 84, $26 million over The Suicide Squad, $24 million over Shazam 2, and now $9 million over Blue Beetle, so it's now sitting behind Birds of Prey by $3 million. It's about to be the highest grossing DC film post 2019. Not that that's a great accomplishment, because 2020 onwards was kind of the death call for the DCEU as we know it. For the James Wan filmography, it has outgrossed Insidious by $27 million and Saw by $26 million. It's now only $2 million behind Insidious Chapter 2. Worldwide, it bumped up really well to $255 million. So for DC, it is $127 million over the run of Blue Beetle, $123 million over Shazam 2, $88 million over The Suicide Squad, $89 million over Wonder Woman 84, and $54 million over Birds of Prey. It now needs $11 million until it outgrosses The Flash. So good on them. You know what I mean? It's about to really overtake everything there, including The Flash, as far as the post 2019 DCEU film. So I figured this was always going to happen, no matter how poorly the reception of this movie was. I always figured, if it's solid enough, it will, it won't make $1 billion like it did, but it still has a little bit of that fan base, you know what I mean? So that will pump it up just a little bit more. You can never forget that Aquaman back in 2018 surprisingly made $1 billion, but we are in a different time now with these films and, people's attitude towards the franchise that Aquaman is in, and what people have been saying online about Aquaman ever since the rumored test screening disasters and stuff like that. So yeah, it's still nowhere close to doubling its $205 to $215 million budget. It still needs to get to at least $430 million at that point, like in the worst case scenario there. But even then, who knows how expensive this movie really is because of the reshoots and the, cuts and studio notes and all that. Obviously, we've known that Michael Keaton was going to make a cameo in this film, but then was swapped out with a Ben Affleck one. And then it was like, what do we do? Is it going to come out before The Flat? Do we need to, or what are we doing with the universe? Cut them both out. So, a lot of behind the scenes stuff has been happening here. So who knows how expensive this movie really is. For James Wan's filmography, it is $94 million over Insidious Chapter 2, and now sits behind The Conjuring 2 by $55 million. So either way, it's going up on the lists of like low grossers for both James Wan's films and also for the DC cinematic universe, the extended universe, basically Man of Steel to now, which is, hey, impressive enough. And I'm sure maybe some people are surprised, like, oh, it's not just falling flat on its face, it has some kind of legs. But still, like, it's still not a great sign, and they've already announced that this is all over, so it doesn't matter. Let's move on to number 3, though, which is Migration, having a little bit more of a second chance here, making $17 million this 3-day weekend, adding to a domestic total of $59 million, so that is now $49 million behind Illumination's worst performer, Hop. Worldwide, it is sitting on $105 million, so that's $83 million behind Hop, but also because the budget is $72 million, and they, need to double that to be considered a success, they are only about $37 million or so off from reaching that doubling point period. So I don't think this is going to rebound in a sense of like, oh, it's reaching the heights of The Secret Life of Pets. Do you guys remember that, by the way, in 2016 when The Secret Life of Pets did like really well for some reason? Like, it didn't hit $1 billion, but it was like one of the highest grossing films of 2016. It got really close. So yeah, what point is, Migration's not going to hit those Illumination heights for like at least an original idea that they've done, but if they can at least double this budget and maybe even because of, it's still kind of doing okay in its second weekend, continue that in some way as the weeks go by, they could still maybe have a solid hit here, which wouldn't be awful. This is also a pretty solid Illumination film. I was pretty surprised to find out. I was going in thinking like, I haven't heard anything about this, and Illumination, but it was actually pretty solid. I would equate it to the Spies in Disguise of this year, or of 2023. And Spies in Disguise unfortunately flopped, but this one has a chance to at least do okay. So big difference for those ones, but they're both fine movies. And number 4 was The Color Purple. If we were just going by daily box office numbers, if we were talking about the Christmas day, it opened up number 1 there. It made $18 million on its opening day, which is obviously fantastic. But what I was thinking of when I was making my prediction was, can that momentum really last with a front-loaded opening day on a Monday? That's not like it's opening up on a Thursday or even a Wednesday. That's like the beginning of the week after the 3-day weekend prior. You know what I mean? So, and with all these other movies to go see as well, the new releases didn't really, we'll talk about the rest of them, but also these other movies that now some other people have the time to see too. So I was wondering if it could even maintain that momentum it had on its opening day, and it unfortunately did not. It is a solid movie though, so if you haven't seen it yet, please check it out. It's doing fine. I think some worldwide numbers could potentially help if we get there, maybe if it holds over well next week, but that's of course discussion for another video. It made $11 million this weekend for the 3-day, which adds to an overall domestic run so far of $47 million. This is on a budget of $90 to $100 million though, so like I said, it could use some help with some carryover, some word of mouth, and also potentially some worldwide numbers. So like I said, if you can see this movie, feel free to. It's pretty solid. Moving on to number 5, which was Anyone But You, another one that held over pretty well like Migration. Maybe it has a chance here. Made $8.7 for the 3-day, adding to a domestic total of $27 million for the director Will Gluck. It is outgross Fired Up by $10 million. It is also now $13 million away from outgrossing Peter Rabbit 2. And then worldwide, it is bumped up just a little bit to $32 million, so it is only about $18 million away from doubling its $25 million budget. So we might actually have a modestly budgeted film be a little bit of a success if it can get that extra 18 million, which we'll have to see at this point. But now that it has some worldwide numbers, that could also help it out. For Will Gluck's filmography worldwide, it is over Fired Up by 14 million, now sits behind Easy A by 44 million, so it's making its way up for the Will Gluck filmography. Still though, it's not going to be like this big smash hit it's shaping up to be, but it will be a modest one, I'm hoping. It'll be a modest hit at the end of the day, which for Will Gluck could also be pretty good. Let's move on to number 6, which is The Boys in the Boat, the second new release of this weekend. Once again, it opened up on a Monday, opened up on Christmas Day, so that's a lot of people seeing it throughout the week, and then you have the 3-day weekend, and it's like, some interest has maybe kind of petered out at this point. There's some other movies we gotta go see. Maybe some other people are prioritizing it. The fans in quotes. It feels weird to say that about this movie. But let's say the general audience that would, front load its opening weekend, they already did that for the couple days in the week. So that's probably why we have such low numbers here, but still it made 8.4 million, so it's not too low, I guess, in today's standards as well, which adds to a domestic total of 24 million. This is on a budget of 40 million though, and there's no worldwide numbers to bump it up yet, so it will need about 80 million to be considered a success technically. So it's going to have a little bit of an uphill battle there, at least with the domestic numbers we have here, because I'm not thinking it's going to hold over particularly that well. But for director George Clooney, this opening weekend is 6 million higher over than Suburbicon and 8 million over Confessions of a Dangerous Mind and Good Night and Good Luck. They had the same roughly the same opening weekend, those two movies. And then for the domestic runs so far, it is 19 million over the run of Suburbicon and 8 million over Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Now needs 7 million until it outgrosses both Leatherheads and Good Night and Good Luck. Not covering his Netflix films, the Midnight Sky, or Tender Bar wasn't a Netflix one, that's Amazon Prime. His streaming films, because obviously they didn't make any money. So yeah, good on you, George. It'll probably end up like right in the middle of all of his other movies, I'm pretty sure. Like I said, if it gets some support elsewhere, that could be really great for this thing. But right now, it's looking like it's just another George Clooney movie that kind of comes and goes. I don't really mean the ones he's in, just his directed films are the ones that I feel like people forget about quite often. Let's move on to number 7, which is The Iron Claw, making 5 million, adding to a domestic total of 16 million. So it's still a ways to go until it doubles its 15.9 production budget, but crossing over the initial point is not too bad. It has, for A24, outgrossed 8th Grade by 3 million. It now sits behind The Whale and The Green Knight by 1 million, so that kind of goes to show you where it kind of is in the A24 rankings. It didn't bump up like I maybe thought it would have when I was talking about it last weekend, but, there is still some audience attention here, and I think the more people talk about it, especially when award season comes, because I don't think this is going to be a big award season movie where it sweeps a lot of categories. I don't think it's going to be nominated for a lot, unfortunately. That's just kind of how the award season's kind of shaping up to be. But still, some surprise nominations could help get some more attention on it, and this could be the movie that because people always point out, like, why'd they snub this, why'd they snub this? People go check it out just out of pure curiosity, and they're like, oh yeah, this is really good. So I think this movie will have a pretty, long good life, you know what I mean, in the good graces of the public. Let's move on to number 8, which is Ferrari, the final new release that we have here. Oh boy, it made 4 million, adding to a domestic total of only 10 million. This obviously did the worst of the new releases that got opened up on Christmas Day. And this is on a budget of 95 million. Worldwide, it is only sitting at 13 million. So there's quite a ways to go until they get to any kind of doubling point, and they are just not there. Not that I think Michael Mann cares too much about it, but anyways, it has, however, for its opening weekend, made 1 million over Black Hat, 2 million over Manhunter, and 3 million over The Keep. And then for the domestic run so far, it has outgrossed Thief by 6 million, The Keep by 7 million, Manhunter by 2 million, and Black Hat by 2 million. It now needs 18 million until The Insider. Because of how much it made this weekend, I'm not sure if it's even going to get to that, but we'll see. Stranger things have happened on this show. Worldwide, it is 9 million over Thief, 10 million over The Keep, and 5 million over Manhunter, and it's 6 million away from Black Hat, which is a little bit more realistic than it having a stronger hold domestically, I would say. Let's move on to number 9, which is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, making 2.8 million, adding to a domestic total of $160 million, so 121 million away from Mockingjay Part 2, and worldwide it is sitting at 313 million, which is 333 million away from Mockingjay Part 2. I don't know why I keep bringing up how far away it is from Mockingjay Part 2. I know it's never going to get there realistically, but I don't know. It did lead us to this pretty slightly funny moment where it is 333 million away from Mockingjay Part 2 worldwide 333. I don't know why I think that's so funny. I feel like I've just said a lot of threes lately in 130 million budget. Three, this is pointless. Sorry, moving on. Closing out the video, number 10, The Boy in the Heron, making 2.5 million, adding to a domestic total of 35 million. Worldwide, it is now sitting at 130 million, so it's outgrossed The Wind Rises by 13 million for Hayao Miyazaki. Now needs 20 million until it outgrosses Princess Mononoke. So it's about to leave the top 10 for sure, but this did really good as far as a US released Hayao Miyazaki film. Obviously worldwide it had the support like it usually does, but especially here in the States, the fan base for not just anime films but also Hayao Miyazaki's films in particular have really grown in the last couple, at least since The Wind Rises came out in 2013, I want to say is when the year that got released here in the States. So yeah, it's just really great to see it do particularly pretty well. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. As far as I know, there's only one, wide released film that is coming out. So number 1, I think Night Swim has a chance of getting in there just because it is a newer film. And as much as Wonka, I think some of these other films will still have a solid enough hold because it's only one new movie, like I said, as far as I know. But Night Swim is also what this list is kind of lacking right now is a good old-fashioned studio horror film, and Night Swim will scratch that itch for some people. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's the only new release, and I'm pretty sure they've been marketing it up pretty, like I feel like I've seen it every single time I've seen a horror movie lately, and there's been ads on YouTube, and they're definitely putting out the from James Wan, or no, it's a Blumhouse producer of Mithrigan logo putting up there, and then of course James Wan, producer of The Nun. So I think it'll get some people's attention and be number 1. Number 2, I think, will be Wonka. Number 3, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Number 4, Migration, and number 5, The Color Purple. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.